Excited for another week of the Midnight Founders podcast.
Yep.
We had another great conversation this week with Jeremy and Jenn Brockbank from Volcanic Retail. They have had an interesting, to say the least, path of entrepreneurship, had a bunch of great stories, have done it together the whole way. So it was cool to see the perspective of the husband and wife duo that have been involved in multiple businesses together. But I would say that the best story of the day, the one that I'm excited for you guys to listen to, is how they built up the cardboard toilet store.
Who knew that was even a thing? And they talked about it for a while. It was great.
Let's go. All right. Well, we're excited to be here with Jeremy and Jenn Brockbank.
Welcome.
They've got a lot of fun things going on.
Yeah,
we're excited to hear about what kind of got you to this path and what got you started and then what you're doing right now, because I know we've got a new idea that you started a couple years ago and it's growing really quickly. So I'm excited to hear more about that and share that story with the listeners.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This is exciting.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't blow it.
No, you're going to do great. You're going to do great. And we're excited for a big announcement here soon, right?
Yeah. Baby number 7. So,
yes.
Congratulations.
So exciting.
3 girls, 4 boys.
Yeah.
Oh my
exciting
goodness.
For us.
Congrats.
We call it second shift in our house.
Yeah.
Go home from work and go home to more work.
Yeah. Well, we always joke because we had 2 of our sons and then we had a big break and then more children. But during that break, it was our first business baby. So I don't feel like we ever took any breaks. I just feel like we went from babies to business baby to babies to another business baby and then a few more after that. So,
Well, now you're comboing baby and business baby.
That's
yeah,
right.
twins.
You have twins.
We're getting cocky.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I did that. Or was that the last baby that I had was when Volcanic truly launched. So,
how big of a gap did you have between?
Oh, I mean, it's not that big. We're in Utah, right?
It's 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
It's big for the rest of our kids.
It was big. Yeah, it was big it was important to take that.
So Jeremy and Jenn
but
say,
it truly wasn't a break at
Oh
all
my
because
goodness,
we
I love
filled
it.
it in.
Yep.
so you're essentially, what I'm hearing is if building a business is not hard enough, we're going to have a baby in between that too.
Yeah.
I think there's that Jim Gaffigan
Oh, I was just gonna say that too.
line
It's
of it's
true.
like, well, what is it like to have 3 children? And he said, well, imagine you're drowning and then someone hands you a baby. And it's like, oh, that's definitely true.
Yeah, maybe when you're starting a business and you have babies, maybe somebody's also like punching you in the gut.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
With no
right.
sleep.
Yeah.
See how
Oh my goodness.
talented you can get.
Yeah.
So how did this whole thing get started? I'm interested in your background. Like, did you always know you were going to be an entrepreneur from growing up? Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial family?
No, not really. I did my undergrad and did business, and like entrepreneurship was kind of like I didn't fully understand the word. I almost felt like it was almost kind of like I envisioned like charlatans and I was just like I don't know about these guys that are taking entrepreneurship.
Which
It's almost
is
hard
funny
enough to say, right?
Yeah,
Or spell.
It was,
spell.
for
It's
sure.
funny though too because you do come from a line of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Your dad was an entrepreneur and his dad was an entrepreneur. So
Yeah,
it's interesting
yeah,
you'd have that.
My dad started a mining and explosive company. He died 30 years earlier, so it was.
Oh wow.
So I never got to really know him. I was just young, but yeah, I guess I did. But as far as like my growing up, I never was around a lot of entrepreneurs. So I wanted to go into business. Actually, we ended up going to grad school to become an athletic director. So we went and we were working for the Oklahoma Sooners, their basketball and football and stuff. And
Were those your sports?
I don't know if anything's really my sport. I'm not overly talented.
Football, he loves football.
Yeah.
Football?
His
Okay.
family was all basketball and he was the one
Okay.
football.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was good, and I always envisioned just continuing on in athletics, eventually being athletic director, and we just kind of eventually what happened was, they had this big old financial collapse of 2008, and all the universities went on a hiring freeze, and so we're like, we just got to get a job. So I don't, so much for dreams, and honestly, how I got into retail was there just happens to be this company. It almost sounds fake, but it's real. What it was is we sold cardboard toilets, And that was my first job into retail. And
Where was that?
it was a startup company.
It was here in Utah where preppers are big, right?
Yeah.
Cardboard
And-
toilets. Wow.
Yeah, it was.
I think God provided that opportunity for us to keep us humble. Like,
Oh, yeah, that was terrible.
You are going to start out below the lowest. Like,
But it was good. I basically just didn't have. I just knew I got to get on the phones and call outdoor shops and stuff and try to get rolling. And
Can I ask who would buy a cardboard? I mean, I'm trying to understand how.
It's like
Yeah,
ice
now you
cubes
know
to
how
an
hard my
escalator.
job
wrap
was.
my head around this
Yeah.
cardboard toilets.
yeah,
How
you and
does-
everyone else. But yeah, just we sold some products to like FEMA and stuff. But there was, it was tough sledding for a long time.
I will never forget. I went to church and a lady was asking me what my husband does, and I told him, I told her, and she said, "Oh dear." And to me, I had grown up internationally, so like to me that was a good thing. Like it was something that I could understand why it was an important thing. Growing up in third world countries and things like that, seeing poverty and disease because of things that could be preventable. But anyway, so to me, it was way over my head that it was something I should be like embarrassed about. And
Yeah.
I think it's,
I had no
it's a
shame.
good part of the story. I think that makes us who we are. Like, it's just that, it's important to have those little moments where people kind of pat you on the head.
It was definitely.
Makes you fight harder, right? It makes
That's a
you
great
like,
topic at dinner parties. I can't
Yeah.
even imagine like a billboard campaign along the freeway. We do cardboard toilets.
Yeah, it was interesting. I remember. I mean, it felt like, the company was underfunded. Everything about it was set up to fail. And
Yeah, you probably didn't know
nobody
that
even
yet,
showed
right?
up for work.
yeah,
half the time.
I got hired, and I just realized that I was the only one showing up for work like every day.
And he was like desperate. It was our first kid was on the way. He had to make this company work. There were no jobs, like 2008, no jobs ever for,
it was
nobody was
tough.
hiring. And so he was like bound and determined to make this company
I remember.
go.
I remember every morning waking up, and I'd have to almost put like hard. You probably don't know this. I'd put like hard rock music on to go to work.
To pump yourself up.
I was like, I'm good. I got to get all the energy I can get to sell this product.
It's like the Jim and Dwight
yeah,
scenario in the office.
it was. It was
right?
very similar to Dwight.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that, obviously we went on to build a lot of other companies, but that's kind of how it all began.
It's interesting because a lot of the people that we talk to, this is becoming a common theme, that a lot of entrepreneurs got their start in sales.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because you have to be able to do that side of it
Yeah.
in order to be successful as an entrepreneur, because you have to build a team. You have to convince other people to jump into your crazy idea. It's like that thing they show, that meme with the one person dancing on the hill.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's like 20 people dancing on the hill. Like, that's the entrepreneur, right? They have to convince people to join their
I'm
crazy
telling you, it
ideas.
is kind of true. A lot of it, I think, also comes out of just a little bit of, to be quite frank, a little bit of ignorance. Like you don't think when you're starting a tech company, you don't really think, hey, I can't, there's certain things that are going to be over my head. You just kind of, if you're dumb enough, you just start it. And then you're like, well, I guess I got to keep going. People are putting money into this.
Which, thank goodness
or-
we have those moments, right?
Or
Oh,
when
yeah.
when you start your family, same thing. It's
Oh, yeah.
like, you got to be a little bit ignorant. Otherwise, I don't think people would have kids.
Yeah, for sure.
So wish us luck on the 7th. But
Congrats. That's
Yeah. So, but you kind of learn, if you're kind of forced to learn, I think the one good thing growing up is I didn't really have a safety net. I was the youngest of 11 kids. And so we didn't have a safety net. We didn't have people to kind of bail us out. So it was all kind of like, well, better figure this one out, and it kind of, I think it's really helped in entrepreneurship and
Yeah.
building the businesses that we have.
yeah, his mom was too busy to kind of like baby him at all. That's our joke, is he was raised by wolves. It's not true. Of course, his mother did so much, but not as much as maybe.
You
some
just
of the-
kind of,
you're
felt
kind of
things
on
out.
your own. Like if you are getting a C, there's no one there to like kind of, hey, where's your
Yeah.
C grade or lower or whatever, like
Yeah.
you just are on your own making it or failing.
Yeah.
We only have
a
3
good
kids,
thing.
and I feel like my kids are raised by wolves sometimes.
Yeah. Who doesn't? Yeah.
That's true. Who doesn't?
That's
Would
incredible.
you say that Jeremy and Jen, that maybe some of those early failures or that only failure, which I'm assuming it failed. I don't know about.
Oh,
lots of
there's
failures.
a lot of
right?
failures.
Lots of failures.
Would you say you've learned more from those than your successes? Like that, how does that
don't-
play into it?
I don't think so. I think it's just kind of an accumulation of everything. We've had some big wins too, but I think you just kind of take a little bit apart of some of the more important things that kind of pop out, and you try to not make the same mistake twice. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Actually
And I
learn.
think you kind of come to points in our journey, especially, like we came to points where we had to decide, like, okay, we're doubling down on ourselves,
Yeah.
like we have to pivot a little.
Yeah.
We have to like learn from this mistake, but we are going to keep going. So
That kind of frugal mentality is, I think it helped, particularly our last business, our anthill business, where we just knew, like, we're not going to go, we just didn't know how to go into debt, right? I mean, it was just something we just like, we can't do this. And so it's put a lot of extra pressure on us, but it's, to always hit positive numbers every month. And I remember this conversation I had with, he was a VP of Vivint, and he did all these a lot of different advice and consulting for CEOs in the tech industry, and he came and looked at our numbers. He's like, "Well, I can tell you this: nobody else in the county is pulling down these numbers. We had 110 straight months of net profit, and it's because
Wow.
it was just." I guess I didn't know that you're supposed to like have like losses. It's okay to have a loss for a month.
It's not a thing for Jeremy, right?
No, well, I think I had been just kind of swimming for a long time. Like, just I got to make this work. That it was automatically on nonstop. Like, I mean, we had, because of the failures that we had, we were kind of forced into making things work. There's definitely probably 7 or 8 years where work started at 4 a.m. in my home office, and it was just, we're going to call Europe, get on the phone, and then it's a U.S. timetable, and then we called it. And it just,
but I don't
big
think it was
days.
like intentional. Oh, I'm going to wake up at
No,
4 a.m.
it was not. It was
Jeremy was blessed and
was
cursed
anxiety.
with anxiety,
Yeah.
and luckily it helped him a lot, like just feeling all that pressure.
You
But
channeled it in
I
the
actually
right
have
way.
a correction. It was Novell, the VP, one of the VPs of Novell, wasn't it? Well,
I'm
it's by
sure.
the-
I think that's in
it's
his bio. Yeah, but
But you
also
called it
VP of
Vivint.
Well, he
That's
was
what-
a VP of Vivint too.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm learning.
There we go.
So you mentioned Anthill was one of your more recent
Yeah.
companies. What's that company, and what do you do?
After we did this toilet business, and
I will always remember that.
worked
by
for
the
some
way.
other companies. We went to another company that did portable solar, and that did really well. We became the fastest growing retail brand on Link 5000. So my goal was to put them into big box stores like Target, Lowe's, Office Depot, all those type of stores. And then we worked for a couple other ones, some Shark Tank stuff. Mark Cuban Shark Tank Company, worked with a little bit with Lori Grenier. And then we started Anthill. And Anthill is basically, we're a consulting firm where we help build the sales for all the different retail brands and the different channels. So our big thing, I guess, that we tell people, which, when you say stats, you're kind of really careful about the stats you say, because you don't really know everything else out in the world. You just kind of know what you have. But we believe it's the largest retail buyer database and brand database in the world. So we built, a little over 500 brands. So we put them into all the different stores, and we have a database and reports and all that kind of stuff. But that's the one that we have now. It's been pivoting to this does a lot of consulting now, helping brands with more than just the sales side. And with Volcanic, which is our kind of this big thing that we're doing right now, it's more of like it's a SaaS platform. It's we're gonna give you all the tools to run your own sales and everything else. We're gonna let you connect. Everything can be done one click. It's basically it looks like it's a response to, COVID shutting everything down on the trade show side. But really, it's something that we've been preparing for probably 3 or 4 years prior to COVID. We just thought that like the retail shows and the trade shows were not efficient. No matter what brand we built, it was a universal response that, oh my gosh, I just spent $35,000 or $100,000 or whatever it was. And we're just noticing that the big buyers just aren't here. They're just, there's a lot of other people here and a lot of booths, but it's not, we don't know how else to do it. So that's kind of how Volcanic was,
So I
began.
think you probably need you need to take a step back because when you first started talking to me about it, I was like, I had no idea what you were even talking about.
Yeah.
But so brands, like companies have buyers that are out purchasing
Retailers.
products. So retailers have buyers that are out purchasing products from these brands.
Sometimes teams of buyers. They've got
teams,
right?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how that side of the industry works.
Yeah, for sure. So if you wanted to go sell to a retail store, I guess the analogy that everybody understands, I guess, would be Shark Tank, right? So somebody comes up with and creates some cool product, and they feel like it's pretty revolutionary. And this is actually really typical in entrepreneurship, where somebody will create like something through Indiegogo or a Kickstarter, and they're super jacked about it. They get a bunch of pre-orders that fund the manufacturing of it, and they come out of the shed and they're like, okay, now what? And they realize, I don't know how to get my product into retail stores. I don't know who the buyers are. I don't know who all the chains are. I don't know how they do business. And it's kind of a rude awakening for a lot of people. And the difficulty thing with all these brands is they have, it's just a really short amount of time where they have to be up and rolling fast. Like they can't make mistakes over and over again, or they're just going to bankrupt themselves. And so,
and they're very guarded too. They're very hard to get to.
Buyers.
Well, yeah. So
the buyers, they shield those people. So, I remember just a quick story. I used to manage the Costco account for a company I used to work for. We went up to Issaquah to their buyer day. Oh, yeah. They made a buyer day. Have you heard of this? So Jim Siegel gets up on the stage, the CEO of Costco. Hot dogs and drinks will never be more than $1.50, and everyone cheers. It's like a rock concert, right? It was so crazy. Yeah. And then he says, "Okay, is everybody ready?" And I didn't know what was going on. It was my first time because all the vendors are there in this this venue hall. It's a tent actually outside of their building because it's so big. Yeah. He's like, "Are you guys ready?" And there's this drum roll and there's lights that's going on, and then there's big music, and he says, "Here come the buyers," and the doors open, and down these red carpets, like 3 aisles of buyers,
and
people
shopping,
just swarmed,
right?
And it's you're exactly right. It's a very hard industry to break into.
Yeah,
they're there to pick and choose which items are going to be on the shelves in Costco, right? So it's a
and they can't make mistakes, like you said.
So the misconception is that the retail store buyers just have. They're just shopping, and it couldn't be further from the truth. First off, a very small percentage of a retail store actually turns over every year. So if you're like a Walgreens, you got 95% of the store that's, you're just never going to break into. It's, the Dove or it's, Pert Plus or whatever it is, right? That's always just going to be on the shelf, and you're fighting for the last 5% of the store space. So it's a very small amount. What you don't realize is on the other side of that of the curtain is you're competing with 1,500 other brands, and so you don't really have that idea when you start a business. You're like, Walgreens will love this product, and you're realizing, oh my gosh, some of the people that I'm competing against are the real deal. They built some of these major companies that are already in there. They know they have the relationships, have everything else. So really, it's. With retail buyers, if you're going to get a product into a store, like if I'm going to go sell something into REI or Target or H-E-B or something, what they're doing is the buyers, the majority of their job is not buying products. It's being a category manager. So it's basically they're monitoring their current stock levels, what products, what SKUs are not performing, which ones they need to remove out. They'll bring in their analyst. It's basically they can't have empty shelves, and they need the best producers. So going in there with a really nice fluffy sales pitch of, hey, this is really cool, take a shot on us. The bigger the chain, the less that would ever work. It's a very analytical discussion. And so what we're trying to do is trying to break these brands out of the noise. We're trying to show them a lot of other opportunities of other stores they can get into on more of like a regional or a smaller basis, or different distributors, so they can prove their sales numbers, so we can start approaching some of the major retail stores.
To add to the complication of the whole process of trying to get your product into retail, there's multiple buyers within, like, they are only over a 4 foot by 4 foot space most of the time.
That's so insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Just a small little planogram.
and you're literally trying to go for that one SKU that they are going to slot in as a trial, maybe 2 SKUs. It's not a big number. So that 5% of a store is literally like, you have maybe a toothpaste or something, and there may be one slot in for you to be out of all those 1,800.
Yeah.
And if you're like a chapstick or something, or lip balm, there's multiple places in the store that you could be placed. So there's multiple buyers that you're going to be pitching to. It's not just you're in the store, we'll put you wherever we want. Yeah. You are now pitching an analytical sale to all these different buyers who may or may not have a slot for you, that they would even be willing to try, but they definitely, it comes down to numbers. It's very nitty gritty. It's very
and
it's hard.
I think the difficulty on the brand side is that you don't know who the buyers are. They don't tell you who the buyers are. They don't tell you the email format on how to email them or anything else. And there's a reason why they don't, is because, and this is, even back in the Kmart days, they would have buyers who there's almost like a little bit of nepotism going on. They'd stick in their categories for a really long amount of time. And what would happen is, it was very tempting industry-wide for people just to buy from their friends. They're like, hey, I know Billy, he's always going to be the outdoor buyer, and he's been in there forever. And what happened is a lot of different competitors began to sink. And so, and really some of a lot of the new competition that we have now is they had this really quick buyer turnover, so that they'd bring fresh ideas on it. So it wasn't about relationships. It was about the numbers. So that's kind of, it just give you a little bit insight of the buyers. So now what's happened, I think on the trade show side is, or at least over the last 15 years, is buyers aren't sourcing through trade shows anymore. A lot of them typically source through social platforms. Like they'll go to Pinterest, or they'll go to Instagram. They'll go to YouTube and they'll be, hey, that's a cool Instagram. They got a huge amount of followers. It looks like a cool brand. I'm going to reach out to these guys only, right? Or, these guys have some really cool viral videos, really cool education-based YouTube videos. And I'm going to, I have some interest in there. Otherwise, they'll go to a trade show. And if you're like a Costco buyer, I've dealt with plenty of them.
Good for you.
Yeah,
or bless you. I should say.
They're tough. They're tough. They're notoriously tough, but they're extremely smart.
They are.
They run a really good business. But I think the what's interesting about these buyers is they might go to a trade show, and they'll go there for the first 2 or 3 hours of a show. They'll meet with the 5 brands they want to meet with, and then they take the plane right back out and they're gone. And so, if you're not one of those 4 or 5 companies that's expecting to see the big buyer that you're hoping for, and you're kind of left with a bunch of mom and pops and bloggers and everything else, it gets a little frustrating. So, but what the problem is those social platforms like Instagram and whatever, they're not built for B2B business. So this is really where the big opportunity for Volcanic came from, is you're like, well, yeah, I see this new cool brand that's trending on Kickstarter or on Instagram, but you have no idea all the B2B information if they're going to be a good business, right? So you don't know, where do they source their products, and who's their CEO, and it doesn't tell you this type of stuff on their Instagram platform. What was their shipping terms? Was their buyback policy? what other buyers have vetted them and who they sold to successfully. And so it's just like they're trying to piecemeal something because they know that it's more efficient than trade shows, but the problem is it's still highly inefficient. So we wanted to create a platform which was a two-way communication platform where everything that you could see typically from the buyer side, from a brand side, anything that you typically would email something off to a buyer, like, hey, look, we have this discounted product, or we're just coming out with this new SKU. Everything's hosted on your own social media site, and then a buyer is allowed to accept or reject, the conversations. There's a lot of predictive analytics and AI technology and all that other stuff behind it, but basically we're trying to level the playing field and make it a lot easier for brands and buyers to get in touch with each other, and also to see the whole history and vet each other really quickly.
So you're solving all those problems you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Creating a lot of transparency on both sides, making it easier to be efficient and consolidate all the buyers' to-do lists. Just creating a really easy platform for the buyers to make their workload less and make it easier so they're not having redundant conversations and trying to figure out where they're picking up, especially since the buyers are moving categories so often. Like Jeremy mentioned, moving every 18 months, and where the cycle to get your product actually into a retail store, maybe 9 months or longer. I mean, you could get all the way to the end of a pitch, and the whole cycle of getting your product to get a yes and a PO. And then they could be transferred to a different category, and you have a new buyer to start over from zero with. It's a lot of money. And then one thing you have, or it's a lot of time and frustration there. But one thing you didn't mention was the cost of trade shows is outrageous. So if you're not getting opportunity to present to those buyers, and you don't have an opportunity to email them because there's so many gatekeepers and so many, they've kept it pretty hard to reach them. Then you really are I think the desperation of people that are spending so much money at a trade show must be huge. I know that a lot of the brands that we've helped through our other company, Ant Hill, have spent so much money and not gotten anywhere near what they needed to make it a reasonable,
it's all trying to, I think,
exchange. So for that alone, that is going to eliminate so many problems for buyers and brands to just be able to communicate transparently, effectively, quickly, and get to the point of especially on the shorter time frame where they may be transferred or whatever.
I think it's all trying to pick up losses. I think where from Amazon. Amazon's kind of really squished everybody else's margins while they're squishing their own.
Yeah.
And the retailers and brands need a way to become more efficient so they can pick up those margins back up again. And that's really kind of what we're trying to aim to do. One thing that's kind of fascinating as we're talking about this, that just brought back my memory, is a lot of the brands that we deal with. It's amazing. Everything's throughout the world is just becoming. It's all consolidated. Like it's. I would say
mergers and acquisitions.
Well, I'm just that the world in general is just becoming a lot smaller. Like when you deal with a company that just created a product or a brand, like even with Volcanic, and we probably have 30% of the companies on board, they're international brands, and they just they realize that, hey, we're in a relatively small country. There's only if I'm going to sell a product and I'm in Australia, right, and I'm a grocery product, I can only sell to like a Woolworths or a Kohl's, and if I don't sell to those two, then basically I'm left to being a direct to consumer product. Or if it's hardware, I can go sell to Mart or 10. But if you're in the United States has 350 regional or national chains. So your chances of success in the U.S. are huge. So we as long as you can kind of put your lines out in a lot of water and build those different relationships simultaneously, your chances of success are a lot higher. But it's I think what we're noticing is a lot of international brands are trying to enter the U.S. market more so now than ever, especially after COVID-19. A lot of their countries were shut down longer. They're a little more paralyzed.
Some of them haven't even opened up yet.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, and so it's it's helpful to have a platform that, and the whole concept behind, Volcanic is allowing people to be able to build their sales platform without any sort of middleman.
Yeah.
And no matter where you were in the world, you could still have the same access to it.
Yeah, that's great. So you're doing Anthill. You kind of see that this is a need in the market.
Yeah.
You get this idea. You've been going for a little while.
Yeah.
You've been sending me you've sent me a few texts over the last maybe month or so.
Oh, yeah.
How has the validation process been going? How is it being received by the brands?
It's been pretty remarkable, actually. I mean, there's the brands and the buyers. So just to kind of take a step back, this whole platform was built by some of our favorite people and most competent people that we've worked with on the Anthill side for the last 10, 12 years. So I think we've got something like, we've got a former buyer at Costco there, was there for 20 years. We had the former vice president of Office Depot and
done in your
Staples
recruiting efforts. That's fantastic.
Top guy at Apple. We've got probably about 15 brand CEOs on the platform. We've got the founder of some really big companies that have been investors, and really because it was built by buyers and brands, they've created a really cool platform. So, we just got back from one trade show, and it was kind of funny. And this is the persistence that I love from some of our employees. There was a trade show that we went to a couple days ago, and they said, "Hey, we're trying to create a competing platform. You guys are not allowed in here." And I just said, "Hey, you know what? Clayton, who's one of our guys who kind of runs our trade show, Clayton, just go to the show either way, right? Just get into the trade show."
The answer is no if you don't ask, right?
He was telling us the story yesterday, and I can't. It's kind of funny, but he ended up giving him a $20 bill to let him into the trade show. Whoever it was, they let him in.
This must have been in Vegas, right?
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy. And we, 3 days later, we walked out of there. We had converted 176 brands.
Wow!
And truly,
Congrats.
it was not a competing platform, which is what they were building. It has components that are competing, right? But we are, in my opinion, a different animal than what they were saying they were.
Yeah, we're not a distributor. We're a two-way communication platform. But these distributors, this company that we're talking about, they just got funded by Blackstone for $100 million just starting up in their distributor. And you've got these
That's
big
validation right there.
Oh yeah, you've got these other
right.
competitors
The
that are
huge
in other
market.
channels like Fair, who just finished their $7 billion valuation raise, and all these other ones that are huge. But the problem is we're undercutting every single one of them because they're saying we're not going to put the brand and the buyer in communication with each other, and we're just going to take a percentage of the transaction. And what we're saying is
opposite.
We're going to put you guys in communication. Yeah. We learn how to monetize it in a different way. So the crazy part about it is they can't change their business model or they destroy their huge valuations. Yeah. They can't say, "Oh, we're actually going to put people together," because now we're not taking a percentage of the transaction. We're just saying, "Hey, everyone get in here for free." We have different ways to monetize that are we feel like are pretty creative and unique, but
like going to trade shows to get rid of trade shows.
I think that's so funny.
That's how we roll.
Paying to go to a trade show to shut the trade show down eventually.
Well, okay. In our defense, I actually believe that we are a complementary product to a trade show. So it allows.
But they don't know that.
Yeah, they don't know that yet. But what it allows brands and buyers to do, but brands especially, is to be more strategic, right? Like where they only have a certain amount of budget. And people that lost so much money in the COVID disaster where everything was shut down, they only had, they lost how much? Maybe 30,000 on one trade show. And every single trade show was shut down, and they had to have reserved their spots and paid their fees already long before the
not
trade show
refundable,
started.
probably.
Non-refundable.
Oh yeah, a lot of them weren't.
So in this way, we are helping them be more strategic with that budget that is very, some of them very minimal and some of them larger, but it's always an impact, right, on the brand. Yeah. They could always use that money somewhere, and if they can use it more effectively, you know, by using our platform as well, then it's a compliment it helps trade shows be more effective too. It helps everybody. I think it just creates a
better ecosystem for sure.
A better ecosystem, perfectly said. I think that's what I'm advocating for right now. It's like, we are not trying to beat you up, trade shows. We're
all the
trying
boats rise
to
with
help.
the tides, right?
Exactly.
It really
true.
is true.
Yeah.
It's
a very antiquated, you know, industry.
But I love that
we're
you've
trying
taken
to bring it up.
I love that you've taken your consumer or the user of your product and you've brought them on your team so you can understand from their perspective how to build it right. So then it just naturally almost sells itself, right?
Yeah.
And we've had so much experience with our parent company. I don't know if it's parent company, but at least sister company. Like, you know, just so many case studies, just watching these brands struggle, everything happens, you know, in this industry. It's big and it's impactful. So it's
for sure.
really
okay,
important.
Jeremy and Jen. So I've got a question for you then.
There.
You guys ready for this?
Yep.
Sure.
So you've gone on this journey, right? With all these companies and, you know, learning this industry of buyers and everything. What's the craziest story that's happened to you?
There's quite a few. It's been a kind of weird ride, but
besides paying $20 to
Yeah.
get 176 brands, I like that one.
it's a low customer acquisition cost.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's been quite a few. I remember I had worked for a company after the cardboard toilet company. I worked for another company that was a startup. In fact, the first 3 companies we worked with, we went into debt further than we made money on all those companies. Even the ones that were, you know, grew from 100,000 in sales to 17 million in 18 months, we still go into debt.
The opposite way that the entrepreneur journey is supposed to go.
Yeah. But it was honestly, it was paying for experience, paying for information and knowledge that helped us kind of get it quite a bit quicker later on.
Yep.
But I remember one time I was working for a company and a lot of our strategy was international distribution. And so this is the first time I went to Europe, and I was gung ho and it's stupid, but I said, yeah, just send me. I'll go off and do this thing, and give me a company card, and I'll make it happen. So I booked, I think it was 8 countries in 11 days, and I was driving, and I started off in Paris and went through Italy and up through Switzerland and Germany and Netherlands, Belgium, UK and stuff. And I think I went through like 25 cities, and I had a ton of appointments at each one. And the moment that appointment ended, I had to drive off as quickly as I can to another city or country. And I remember being right above Milan, and all of a sudden, and they had all these toll booths one after another, and it was just raining and pouring and everything. And I mean, I didn't understand a lot of the road signs still. It was just like one big paranoid journey.
You were looking down at your iPhone trying to drive, and
yeah, it was a mess.
Fast roads.
Anyway, the card
maps.
that they had run out of funds, and so I was in between toll booths with absolutely nothing from a company just starting up that didn't have money, and I was like, I don't even know how to like get out of this next toll, let alone pay for a place to sleep, right? And so that was super gnarly. I mean, trying to like scramble to some foreign bank to try to, and I remember finally getting a hold of one of my business partners at the time, and I was texting him like, hey, can you help me with this or whatever? And he was still asleep. Like it was like 4 a.m. his time or 3 a.m. But I finally got a hold of him, and I had to kind of wait around for them to, put more money on the card. But it was it felt like the first 7 years of our marriage was like that. It was just like,
it was, yeah,
like,
it was.
What could we pawn to go pay for the next whatever?
Well, one story that's coming to my mind is that like how stupid we were with the first company that you had worked for, right? Because they kept about 6 weeks.
Is this the toilet one?
Yeah, this is the toilet one.
My favorite.
So it all goes back to the toilet
about
company.
6
We're gonna be real.
weeks after Jeremy starts with that company, and we're, everybody's desperate for a job, so we're happy that we have a job. They promote him. And then,
this is quite the move.
And then they say, oh, could we just pay you a little bit in stock, so that we don't, have
So they
to take, so they can, And then that little bit became, and the next month and the next month. And don't worry, we're getting funding any day now. So the stock is going to be worth something.
So we went on for a year, just like, hey, we'll just give you more stock.
We were like,
and we had no idea that the stock was worthless. So,
and we were living off credit cards and getting more and more in debt. And kind of find out the guy had been embezzling the whole time.
So this is the best part of the story. The best part of the story is after like 10 months of being there and having the stock, one of the guys comes in, and everybody's, they're all senior, they're all, later part of their career, and I just kind of trusted. There's like 6 of them. Anyway, so he comes in there, and one of them says to me, well, you know that X and X is his name, the founder, he was caught embezzling or whatever for securities fraud. He was found guilty before he started this company. And my heart just sank, like, are you kidding me? Like, how, there's no wonder why we haven't been able to raise money. Oh. Like, it was just like.
And then, minor detail.
You could have told me that on day one before you asked me to take stock for payroll.
Yeah, and that magical investor never appeared. And, of course, our stock was zero. And it just was.
Hopefully, you got some stock of toilets in your garage or something there, though, right?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
in case of an emergency. I go through a lot of tsunamis now, which is fantastic.
Yeah. So that was a fun ride. That was a very important lesson.
I'm glad you can laugh about it now. I don't know if my wife would be that forgiving. I'm like, wait a second, remember that time?
Yeah, she was a trooper. We've had some other interesting ones. Back when we were with a lip balm company, a Shark Tank company, we had some really good success with Mark Cuban and Laura Grenier, and we ended up going off and. Talk about making a fool of yourself. I've done this a few times where we've been in business and we'd sit down and we were going to go meet with at Michael Jackson's home, Paris Jackson, to kind of sign her brand. And we stopped off at Larry King's home at the beginning. We were kind of chatting with them and kind of talking about this potential business. So we wanted to run her brand and put it into big retail stores. And her, I remember her, what are they called? Like the family's trustee or whatever the guy is. He had this product that he wanted to launch, and it was a barbecue product, and it was in the shape of a NASCAR. And he was like, and it almost kind of felt like he was saying like, hey, if you can get this into retail stores, I'll hook you up and you can, run the Jackson family brand. And I didn't have the heart to tell him, like, I was like, I don't know about this.
You got nothing, dude.
Yeah. But he was sitting in there up in the front seat, and he just barely started telling me about it. I didn't know too much about the product at the beginning before I saw the concept art of it. But, and he had his girlfriend with him sitting up in the front seat, and she had a really short skirt. and I say to him, I won't say his name, but I said, hey, your grill, I think it's got legs. And he thought I said, your girl's got legs. So he goes totally silent. And the guy's just like, what did you say? I'm like,
I was trying to give you a compliment.
Shoot, like there goes the Paris Jackson.
It could go far.
Yeah, like that. It's funny kind of when you get into business because, obviously there's a lot more successes than there are flops, but the flops kind of make you, they make it more fun and humorous long term. Yeah. There was this last story on this, but about some of these like humility things. But I had this big, huge launch with Lowe's, and we had this big nationwide and a planogram launch, and we had this big hurricane launch, which was for their Southeast stores and a bunch of others. And we were on it was like our 4th or 5th meeting with Lowe's. And this time they decided, we're going to bring in 3 of our vice presidents into the meeting. And we have 4 other buyers that we want to come to this meeting as well. So I was like, yeah, this is great or whatever. And, we thought we were going to get a lot of commission off of it. It was going to be kind of a really big deal. So we're sitting around this boardroom and we had this wonderful pitch, and the buyers just ate it up, and it was so good. I was super stoked about it. They agreed to go nationwide, and then they started talking about a specific part of of the launch, like where we'd actually power products within Lowe's corporate office. And I sat there and I said, I don't know if you remember this, but I said, yeah, we could be like, yeah, blah, 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 powered by the Home Depot. And then I remembered, oh my gosh, this is Home Depot, not Lowe's. I mean, we're in Lowe's, not Home Depot. And all the buyers just stop and they just look at me as if like I had just offended all of their ancestors for everybody. It was the biggest swear word. And I actually said to him, I'm like, because we're like on the third story up, I'm like, I'm just going to go walk out that window and just call it a day. But it was,
they all started
but
laughing.
it became became those type of experiences, I think, humanize you with the buyers. Later on, Lowe's actually called us they wanted me to be a senior buyer there. But
Cool.
I think some of those experiences where you can kind of turn them around, where they know like you're just a dude, right? Just trying to build a business.
You're a faithful Home Depot shopper.
I'm a yeah. I felt terrible. I watched too much college game day or something.
That's true.
You'd probably presented to Home Depot the week before or something.
Yeah, it's probably true.
But I love that you can laugh at yourself at that.
Yeah,
and they probably love that too.
Yeah, they're just normal people. Yeah. I think and that's kind of the biggest thing I think brands do is they get way too into their head about like these buyers will go and they'll meet with somebody from Macy's or somebody from wherever, and they're just like all scared and whatever else. If you know your numbers and you know the competition and you know the Nielsen data and the sell-through data and you have a really good analytical play of why the product should actually sell, outside of that, I mean, just relax a little bit.
I think that's good advice. I mean, you're saying specifically for brands, but I think that's good advice for entrepreneurship in general.
Yeah, I agree.
Just be confident in your numbers. Like what you said, you have to know the data, right? You have to know and be confident that what you have is good. But that confidence that you have from knowing those numbers will exude itself and make you way more successful.
I mean, if not, you don't know the numbers and you're going there trying to be somebody that you're not.
They'll see through it.
They'll see through it, and now you're just a poser.
That's right.
But if you're competent, you can actually be your personality. I think that goes a long way with people.
This question can go to both of you, but you both have been in this industry for a long time and have been involved in a lot of these discussions and have built multiple kind of successful businesses. What advice do you have for an early stage entrepreneur, somebody at the beginning of their career that's just getting started? Like if you were to look back and give yourself this advice 15 years ago, what would you say to yourself?
Can I start?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to talk about we hadn't married at this point, but Jeremy graduated from UVU, a great school, school of business. So, but in his graduation, the man who was speaking, do you remember who it was?
On the graduation?
Who was the guy that you met in the airport
that was he was over a big venture capital firm.
So he just maybe did a seminar or something.
Yeah, it was an adventure
while you were a student.
Series, yeah.
Okay, so basically one of the things that he shared with those people in the seminar was that you have to take risks, early on in your career, and because later on you have a family, it's harder. You have to take more baby steps. If you're gonna take a big risk, take it early, take it younger if you can. And one of the examples that I would say is how we did that is one of the companies early on in our career, right after we had incurred all this debt, right, living off of all this pretend someday our ship was coming in, any day our ship was coming in.
The toilet stock, I'm gonna call it.
Yeah. No, we incurred a lot of debt living on credit cards and things.
Do you give credit? We paid it all back.
Oh yeah, we paid it back, and I'm very proud of that. Yeah, but we could have at that point been scared and not doubled down, like I mentioned earlier, on ourselves. And there was a point. I feel like there were a few points where we had that choice to be like, well, do we really believe in our dream, ourselves? Do we really think that we can? Yeah. And one of the risks that we took was going to work for a company that was paying us only $30,000 at the time. So we were literally going into more debt because at the time we had 2 kids. Mm-hmm. We couldn't survive off of $30,000. That's like I mean, and paying our debts off. So I think everybody around us thought that we were crazy. And I don't think I ever felt like we were crazy. Do you feel like that?
I think we had confidence that would break through if we just gave it time.
And we saw it more as an opportunity. Like, here's this young company that does have financial backing, that is funded, and Jeremy's getting to an opportunity to prove himself, but also take all the skills that he learned from the failures before and like take it with funding behind him now. Like one of the differences was that Jeremy never had worked for a company that was truly funded. So this was a new startup that was funded. It had very, very minimal sales, maybe 100,000 in sales. And those were just inbound sales. So he was able to take that job for 30,000, which was nothing and scary, but we ran with it. Like, and he built his career. It gave him a platform to build his career,
you know, just into the Shark Tank, yeah.
To prove what he could do with funding behind him. Like he got him into everything and made them very successful.
What was the company name again?
Goal Zero.
Goal Zero. Oh.
Yeah, it was a Sorensen back company, and ended up selling out to Energy.
Yep. And anyways, so that was an example of like one of the crossroads, I think, for us is like, well, we are young and we can take some more hits. So we're going to use this as an opportunity for education and also as a platform to show people who Jeremy truly is and what he can truly do. And anyways, I would just say believe in yourself and double down. But it's important that you do keep making corrections.
Roll with the punches.
Yeah. And take the punches. Like take them as an education, right? Take them gratefully, because at some point they're going to help you. But
that's a good one.
It hurts. It hurts to take the punches. It really does.
I think for me, on my side, and thanks for sharing that, Jen. For me, I think I kind of like fumbled into this a little bit, and maybe I don't give myself enough credit. I don't know if it was really fumbling, but it was when I was in college, I kind of had the idea that I was going to get testimonials and letters from everybody that meant anything to me. Like, so, I mean, I remember going around and I got testimonials from the deans of the schools and the athletic department and all those people. And it kind of turned out where I started doing that after grad school too, and through Oklahoma. It was just, if I could catch people right after that I've worked with them and get a, signed letter of recommendation when they're most happy and when everything's most fresh, I could use that. And it ended up working quite well. And in fact, I think, all those, all the expressions of people talking about like your morality and your honesty and stuff like that, I think that puts down a lot of walls for your future jobs, which is, I think, really important to do. We actually kept doing that through, I think on the Anthill site, we have like 80 testimonials that we just have people lay out right when they're done, right? If I could give any recommendation, it's just something I've done. It's not something I kind of knew I was going to do going into it, but I would just track your wins really closely. Another thing I used to always do, which worked really well, is every time I'd go to a corporate office, I'd take a picture of me in the corporate office to prove, these are the people that I've sold to. And I noticed the industry never did that. Every time I went with somebody, that was not a thought. But
and
it was.
You take pictures too of products on shelves.
Oh yeah, go into a store when you launch something on a shelf, take a picture of it. And
cool.
It's something to show people of, okay, this is more than just words.
Cool. Jeremy, Jen, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being on the Midnight Founders podcast with us today.
I appreciate it.
What a cool journey and stories, and I love that you're doing it together.
Yeah,
still do it. It's great.
Yeah, it's a interesting. I think we were talking about this before the show started, but it's kind of an interesting way to play in entrepreneurship if you're going to be a wife-husband duo and co-founders or co-owners of anything, right? Like it adds so many more layers. So we're navigating that, I think, pretty well. I think that's something I'm
remember your kids' names most of the
time? Yeah, most of the time.
Every other one.
Yeah. But that's definitely been a trick, and still we're journeying through that. But I'm grateful that, I have him. So he's a good partner.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Appreciate your guys' time.
Thanks for being here.
Yep.
See you later. Good luck with everything in your future endeavors.
We'll do it.
Yeah, you guys too. Thank you.
The Midnight Founders Podcast is a podcast about entrepreneurship that is hosted by CB Vault and Rev Road. CB Vault is the entrepreneur arm of Central Bank.
And Rev Road is a venture services firm where companies come to grow.
Thanks for listening to us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
This is AJ and Jake signing out.